Hello and welcome to 3 major visual signs that your reef tank is mature. Today I'm going to be talking about the 3 major signs that I came up with that visually tell you that your reef tank is mature. More often than not, people like to shift their focus towards what they can't see in the reef tank. So they'll start testing their water, looking for things like that. This is going to be your visual signs for the people who either don't have test kits or don't want to buy them like me. Let's go ahead and get into the video. So at number 1, we're going to be looking for algae growth. Green hair algae and cyanobacteria are going to be the 2 main helpful mature reef tank algae that you want. You don't really want diatoms because diatoms show of a new tank and we're looking for mature. When you see green hair algae, this is a great sign that your tank has nitrate and phosphate. Now, this is as clear as it gets to where your cycle is complete. All you hear about is that you got to let your tank cycle, you got to wait 6 weeks. Depending on whatever you do, whatever method you take, make sure you see green hair algae and not just diatoms. That means you have nitrate and phosphate, the tank is complete, and you are ready to add any kind of fish, maybe inverts, not quite corals, but you can definitely add some livestock and start getting your tank to where you want it to be. The next kind of algae we're going to look for is cyanobacteria. Now this stuff is real crusted, it's purple, it kind of grows a lime green and then it turns purple to your rockwork. So it has its ugly phases, but at the end of the day, cyanobacteria shows that there's calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity in the tank, showing that you can grow stony corals. And if you can grow stony corals, then you can grow any coral. Cyanobacteria, it'll show up around your tank as just these little purple pimples almost. They kind of look like just little spots you'll see around your glasswork, and then you'll start seeing them show up on the rockwork. Your rocks will turn lime green and then they'll turn purple, and this stuff is absolutely great. It sucks out extra stuff out of the water. It will stabilize your corals, make them all stronger, and it's overall just a great thing to have in your tank. A lot of people just leave the back glass trying to show off their cyanobacteria growth and kind of measure it as how old their tank is. I've done that to a certain extent, but at some point I like a clean glass. The next sign you're going to want to look for is any kind of pest life. What I'm talking about mostly is copepods, microfauna, sponges, and things like that. Now, copepods and microfauna are the 2 most important, and they should be in absolutely every reef tank. Copepods are going to get rid of your diatoms, so if you haven't added them already, be sure to add them because it'll just get rid of all that brown. And the microfauna and sponges, all this stuff is very delicate and will only survive in good water parameters that are stable and that are mature. So if you don't see any of these microfauna sponges growing around, then your tank is not mature enough to handle any other kinds of life, as these will live if the water is livable. A couple things to look for: pineapple sponges. I have a ton of these in my tank. They're pretty cool. They look like a pineapple, and I've heard that they kind of sting you, but I never really mess with my rockwork, so I don't mess with it too much. You may see a lot of feather dusters showing up. I have a couple attached to my corals, and they don't do too much harm. They're pretty aesthetic, and as far as I know, and my LFS told me, they're not damaging at all. They're actually there just to help the tank, and they're going to slowly filter out, and you don't want them to take over, but you want them in your tank. I have a ton of pineapple sponges, feather dusters, and I have this whole rock that is absolutely taken over by sponges. I'm not sure what kind of sponge it is, but it's taken over. It's kind of growing on the corals a little bit, but hopefully it doesn't become too much of a problem. They tend to thrive in low light, low flow areas of the tank, so just be sure to watch your less focused on areas. Now for number 3, the 3rd sign that your reef tank is visually maturing is going to be coral growth. Now, coral growth and corals in general are going to be one of your greatest visual indicators of general health in a reef tank. Depending on what's wrong, your corals are absolutely going to let you know, whether it's temperature, salinity. You could be talking, magnesium levels or stuff like that. Your corals will either blow up oxygen levels in the tank. Your corals will either blow up or they will shrink down. Depending on what kind of corals you have, maybe they retract, they don't come out all the way, they're not as fluffy. Watching your corals every day will absolutely show you coral health and your tank maturity. If your corals just plain cannot live in a tank, then your tank isn't mature. If your corals seem to be fluctuating every day and it's not quite it's looking good one day and bad the next day, then maybe your tank's not so mature and it's not quite ready for corals. But if your coral is showing great signs every day, it looks the same every day, it's not looking too puffed up or it's not looking too sucked in, then you're absolutely in the right spot. And your corals, these are my favorite visual signs. And I'd be lying if I said they weren't. But that's about it. To recap, you want to make sure you have green hair algae and cyanobacteria. Although they're nuisance algae, you still want them in your tank. You still want to make sure that they can grow. You want to make sure you have pests, and not necessarily pests, but copepods, maybe some sponges. And if you have any hitchhikers or actual pests that came from your corals, you're going to notice them start to explode in your tank too. And number 3 is the coral growth or coral happiness in general. Just be sure to watch them. They're great visual indicators, and they'll grow right before your eyes if they're healthy, especially green star polyps. That's what I recommend, is maybe getting some green star polyps, throw it in the tank, and if they can live, then just work your way up all the way until you get to the stony acroporas. And that's going to be about it for this video. The 3 major visual signs that your reef tank is maturing. This is what to look for. When you see a reef tank, your eyes instantly go to either the corals, the algae, or the other life in the tank. Hopefully this gave you some ideas to what to look for and what to look out for. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, consider subscribing, it means the world to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.